Welcome back, painting friends. Today we're going to paint a cute little winter gnome. Colors you're going to need are brown, black, white, red, yellow, green, blue, and this is like a peachy skin color. I always have my favorite 4 brushes. I always have my 1-inch flat brush, my 10-6, and 1 round brush. Don't forget to have a cup of water and a rag for keeping those brushes clean. And remember, if you like what you're seeing today, make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you're kept up to date on all of my tutorials. So let's get started. I'm going to take my 1-inch flat brush with some brown paint, and I'm just going to paint top to bottom lines. Once I have most of it covered in, I can take that brush, a dirty brush, and I can add some spots of yellow in here, kind of anywhere I want them to go. And I can do the same thing with white. And then I'm going to really make sure that the entire canvas gets brushed together. So I don't want to leave any canvas marks behind, but what I'm doing is I'm making just kind of a woodland background kind of color. We're just looking for some tall brush strokes in those colors. I could take this brush now with a little bit of black paint, and I'm just going to tap skinny little lines on here. So I'm just taking my 1-inch flat brush, putting a little bit of black paint on it. I'm just tapping a couple of black lines. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and then I'm going to go through here and just do this one more time, maybe top to bottom. Perfect. I'm going to let this dry. When we come back, we'll add in our next layer. With our dry background, we're now going to go in and lay out our trees, our snow, all of that stuff, and kind of leaving space right here in the middle for our gnome. So I'm going to take my number 6 round brush with some black paint. And with that black paint, I'm just going to make 3 big triangles. And you can have as many Christmas trees or pine trees as you want, but I'm just going to make in straight black one super tall skinny triangle right here. I'm going to make a shorter one right here, and then another really tall skinny one right here. Maybe this one kind of goes off the canvas. And I can go ahead and paint all of those in black because my pine color that will go on top of it will cover up most of that black area. So I just got my 1-inch flat brush because it paints fast. I'm going to just paint all of these in black. Now, while those are drying a little bit, we're just going to take a white paintbrush and draw out where our gnome is going to go. So you can make your gnome as big or as small as you want. You could just do his head, you can add feet to him, whatever. But I'm going to take my white paintbrush and I'm going to start, I like to start with my gnomes with their noses. So a nice big oval nose. From there, it's going to have a big droopy hat, so it kind of looks like a mustache. And that big droopy hat will have a nice thick decorative rim to it. And then your hat can be any way you want. You can make it be straight up to a point. You can have it be kind of poofy and lumpy. It could be a little zigzaggy, totally your choice. Normally I make mine kind of straight up and around like a little hook, but this time I think I'm going to give it a little bit more of a frumpy look. So I'm just going to make a couple of bumps like this. So 1 bump, 2 bump, maybe an extra big bump. and then a hook on it. And I'll come over here to this side where I will give it a bump. It'll kind of come up and then bump back around. Now, as far as your gnome beard goes, you can have, I'm going to just draw in here real quick. You can have a gnome beard that kind of just comes down to like a point like this. You can make it where it has some texture to it. Think like Christmas tree, you know, give it a little bit of spikes out there. Have fun with your gnome beard. You can make yours any way you want, but this one I'm going to keep mine where it's going to be kind of just that Christmas tree-ish shape going down. Look, I'm actually losing almost all of that tree I just made, which is fine. And then I am going to paint his beard area in white, because going over this brown, I will probably need a layer or two of white. I'm going to give my gnome a red hat. I want him to look kind of like a Christmas gnome. So I'm going to go in with my red paintbrush. I've got my number 10 round brush this time. And I am just going to fill in the top part of his hat while that white is still wet. I want that white to kind of shine through on those edges to give it a little bit of a highlight. Once that's all painted in, I can go ahead and grab some extra white paint. Right here on the top of this hook, I want it to be really light. Then I want to also imagine where these creases are from where I have my frumpy hat. So right where it kind of bends in, I'm going to put little white for some highlight. So right there, right here. Go ahead and wash that brush off, dry it off. And I'm going to add mostly white with just a little bit of light blue on my brush for the bottom part of his hat. So mostly white, little bit of light blue. We will fill this in. With that number 10 round brush, I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to tap that white paint off on my palette to get most of the paint off. And then right up here in the corners, I am just going to tap in some of that white color so that it looks like there's some snow or some frost forming in these corners. And go ahead and paint his little nose this light peachy color. And after I get that in, we're going to add just a little bit of red to it to make it look rosy. It's a cute little nose. All right, we are gonna let this dry. When we come back, we will add in some final touches. With my background dry, I'm now going to do something kind of crazy. So I am going to pop this off of my canvas and turn it upside down. And the reason why is I really think it is going to be easier to paint the look I'm wanting on my pine trees if it's upside down. So bear with me here. Let's see what happens. I have got my number 6 round brush, and I'm going to use a mixture of just plain green, and then I'm also going to switch around to like some green yellow and some green and white. But watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to start at the base of each of these pine trees, and I'm just going to take my paintbrush and just kind of pull a line up and kind of let it flick off. So I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow, maybe see it better, a little bit of yellow and green, and just kind of flick off. Flick. So all I'm doing is taking my brush and I'm just setting it down, and I'm just kind of like using my fingers and pulling that line up so that you have that little weird point to it, okay? And that's a very technical term, but I'm just kind of checking to see how I like this. I do want that black to show through. I really like that idea of having that really dark base. So remember, sometimes I'm just going to use plain green. Sometimes I'm going to use green and white. Sometimes green and yellow. But it's all going to be lines across, so horizontal rows of this. Set it down, flick it off. I do love how those trees turned out. I noticed right here looks a little dark, and that's one of those things is when you're painting, really kind of take a step back and look at your progress, because you may want to add a little bit of highlight to some areas, or you see that maybe there's like a spot that looks kind of flat. So when you have it turned back the correct way, you can really kind of play with those extra spots and see where you want to add an extra leaf or two. Now, or an extra leaf, an extra piece of greenery. And I'm just going in with just some straight yellow paint and just adding a couple of yellow highlights to this. I do want these trees to look warm and bright. Okay, wash that brush off really good. And let's go back into our gnome and finish off some of his fun little details. So I'm going to start off with his beard. I'm going to make a little bit of a really light gray paint. So a little bit of black, a little bit of white. Make some light gray paint. I don't want his beard to look very solid. I want it to look like it has some texture to it. So with that white and gray, I'm going to use my paintbrush with a lot of white paint, a little bit of that gray paint, and I'm just going to kind of brush down. I think I'll start at the bottom, brush up, and then I think I'm just going to go straight up towards his nose. So I'm just starting at the base of him, pulling some little lines up, almost the exact same thing we did with those trees. A little bit of gray, a little bit of white, just pulling those lines up to give his beard a little bit of texture. Now back up here on our gnome's hat, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white paint to have it look like there's some snow sitting on these creases and folds. So I've got my number 6 round brush and some white paint. I'm just going to go right up here and I'm just going to add some little bit of white to any place that I can imagine would be like the top fold of his hat. So right here along these little sunken down ledges. Now right over here on his little tuft of a hat, I do want to make that that light blue color, same color as his bottom part of his hat. And I'm just going to kind of make it just a little lines out. It's a lot of blue. I'm going to wipe some of that blue off and grab some white. We're going to add some snowflakes now to the top of our picture. So I'm going to zoom you in so we can see what those snowflakes are going to look like. As far as snowflakes goes, you can keep them as simple as just adding dots with the back of your paintbrush. Or you can make them look a little bit more like starbursts. And to do that, I'm going to grab some white paint on my number 6 round brush. And anytime I do really skinny lines, I like to water my paint down a little bit so it goes on just a little smoother. And to make those little starbursts, all you're going to do is make a plus sign. And then you're going to make a letter X in the middle. Now, you can get as fun or fancy with these as you want. You can keep them just like that. Or you can go in and you can add a polka dot to the end of each of these little spots. You can even add like a small little pointed arrow to each spot to have it look a little bit more like a fractal. So, let's see here. So you have one more, and then you can just have fun with these. So if I was going to do, let's see, put a smaller one right here. What I mean by that is you could take it and put like little upside down arrows, or maybe even their letter V's. Look at that. But you're just going to fill the background space of your gnome in with some snowflakes. So I'm going to jump into speed motion and fill in my gnome. I have really been debating whether I want him to have his hands out holding a sign or not, and I think I'm going to just do it. So I'm going to grab a little bit of red paint on my number 6 round brush. And just next to his beard, I'm just going to make an oval. And then like a little bump. So his thumb, that's his thumb on top is the bump, okay? And same thing over here, oval. Look, I'm covering more of that tree up. We almost lost that whole tree, huh? With a bump on top. Of course, I'm going to add a little bit of highlight to that bump on top, give it a little bit of life, wipe that brush off. So I just grabbed a little bit of white paint, a little bit of highlight on that bump on top, as well as that thumb. And then as far as my sign is going to go, I'm going to take some green and a little bit of brown paint, and I am going to make kind of a wiry sign that goes across here in green and brown. Because it's green and brown, of course, I'm going to turn it into a little bit of garland. Okay, so just a couple of very skinny little green lines coming through. A little bit of green, little brown. We're just going to add some garland on here. Perfect. While that's drying a little bit, I am going to go ahead and do one of my favorite things, which is a ghost line outline. And what that means is I'm going to take that number 6 round brush and add a little bit of watered down black paint to it. I like to call this a ghost line because it's not an outline. You don't have to outline everything. So instead, when you do a ghost line, you outline bits and pieces. Maybe part of his nose I'll outline, but I don't have to outline the whole thing. And if this makes you a little bit nervous to do with black paint, you can always let your picture dry and add a black Sharpie to it. But this just kind of crisps up and cleans up a lot of that picture. You can even add some like extra detail lines in his beard if you want. Maybe there's some coming out from like, underneath his nose to just show a little bit of a detail. And so I'm just going to go through and add some accent lines around my gnome. Remember, these do not have to fill in your entire space, just little bits. Then of course we always have to add our highlights, and I love adding highlights. So clean number 6 round brush with some white paint. Right on the top of his nose, I'm gonna make a long line and a small line. On his hat, I'm just gonna add a couple of little waves along the top. This is kind of like the exact same thing as the ghost lines, except you're doing it with white and it's going on the image instead of off of the image. Even add a little, ooh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I can even take, just like I did on the top of this hat, just little bits of white on some of the tree, have it look like there's snow. And I don't want to overdo this. I want it to look like it had just started snowing. And then for as far as the word underneath here, you can make it be any word you want. You can have it say joy, peace, merry, love, whatever. Totally up to you. So feel free to change that word around. But I am going to take a little bit of red paint with a little bit of brown on it. I want it to be just a little dull. And I think I'm going to go with the word love. And so I'm just going to do big capital letters that look like they're kind of hanging, so maybe they're a little bit messy. Oh, I do love that. I'm going to add that little bit of a ghost line around it in black. And then a little bit of highlight to the tops of the letters. Oh my goodness, I am in love with this cute little guy. All right, so remember, when you are finished, the last thing you have to do is find a color that's going to show up on your canvas and sign your name. I always put my initials in the bottom right corner. Remember that I never get to see what you're painting at home unless you post it to my Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you're kept up to date on all of my tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.